Hello. Today in a little bit of a different format because the internet's worse than I thought it would be in the hotel that I'm staying at, but I think we can make do. Before I start the video this time, not the show, I want to thank the sponsor of the show, which is FTX. Links to that are in the description. Check them out. And yeah, let's get right into it. It's gonna be a little bit of shorter one because no one wants to watch a video that is 1 hour long. So it's just scoot like go through everything really fast, and then you can enjoy your day. High time frame wise, here looking at the monthly support is still holding, right? The support in the 35Ks hasn't been broken yet. So far, nothing else has happened either, right? So we've tested it 3 times, which at some point you would think it's not going to hold anymore. But given it's a monthly chart, that can take a while. And I mean, as long as it's holding, there's a chance that we go to the upside, right? So kind of still ranging between the 60 and the 30K support, and with like a mid-range resistance at 47K. And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. I don't really think there's much to do as long as we're stuck between the bottom of the range, which is, like I said, 36, and the mid-range point. As soon as we start breaking above, I think there's a good chance that we run to 60K, if not higher, right? That's the high time frame stuff. There's not that much actionable info here, just based on the fact that, I mean, it's only ever going to give you a signal like once every couple months, and most people especially in crypto, don't have that kind of time or patience. So I just thought I'd mention it because yeah, it's still high time frame support, and people have been shorting into high time frame support, which tends to not work out too well. And I mean, as you can see, it's not working out too well right now either. With regards to the weekly, it's a little bit of a different picture. Also a range one, but a little bit of a different one because there's a really tight range here between 42K and 37, 38K. And we've been stuck in that for a couple of weeks now with multiple tests on both sides. So this isn't the range that you want to be trading anymore. Not necessarily. If anything, you want to be playing the breakouts, right? Because if we start losing the support, it's going to go lower towards the kind of macro range-ish, which is at 31K. And if we break through support, we're going to go higher towards 51, in my opinion. I know I used to have a level in the 47K range, but I think given that we've tested the high 43, 44K range so often, that's not necessarily one that is really worth paying attention to anymore. Just based on the fact that if we go there, it's probably going to run a little bit higher, and 51K seems like a pretty good spot as just the first significant resistance on the way to the upside. And with regards to lower, right? I mean, 31K, very dicey. I wouldn't want to see us lose 38. But if something happens, still the last support really below that, there's nothing, right? I can't draw anything else. So it's just based on, it's basically just a matter of, okay, if we break lower, are we just gonna, is it just gonna be a shakeout or not? And no one knows yet. I don't want to speculate on it breaking down, so I'm just gonna give you the short, rangy answer. For the people that have watched Weekly Open on Monday, I talked about a setup that was basically longing 38K support with a stop below the low that we set 2 weeks ago at 35, and a target of basically 45, 46. And I think that's like still a valid-ish play. You just have to kind of raise your stop losses on the lower time frames. And if you didn't catch that, I mean, I didn't. I'm on holiday, just enjoying the sun, getting sunburned. But if you did, I would raise my stop loss, because if we start like losing this momentum again, starts looking really bad. And with regards to the lower time frames, actually really interesting because we're building a pattern here, which is one of the reasons why I said when we were looking at the weekly just a second ago that I think 46K isn't really too accurate anymore, just based on the fact like if we go to 46, right, then, and excuse my drawings, I'm doing this on the laptop, then you would expect it to just have at least another push, right? With these kind of pattern breakouts, even if they fail to materialize any bigger move, they usually have at least like 2 pushes, and then they head lower if you're bearish. If you're bullish, obviously can just keep going. But at least I think we would have to go through 46 if we actually started breaking this pattern. And if we start breaking it to the downside, it just looks really, really bad, which just basically means that all of this higher time frame stuff has been spent, right? So I talked about the weekly support having been tested so many times, the weekly resistance having been tested so many times. I think there's a good chance that this range is going to end soon, this lower one. And then we're either going to just go and range in the bigger one, which would obviously suck, but wouldn't be surprised, or deviate and then come back. But I don't think this is just like, I don't think there's a high chance of getting rejected here again and then getting bid again at 38k and then doing the same thing over and over again. I think that is too ambitious, even for the most ambitious range traders. I think it's more likely that we're either going to break to the upside and head towards 51, or break to the downside and head through towards 31k. And that doesn't really change my view on the macro, which is just a massive range. And I mean, that's been relatively accurate since February 21, just gone sideways, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Could be wrong on that, but just based on the whole macro situation, and I know people hate this word, but just based on the macro situation, I just don't think there's a good chance that we're gonna head out and make new all-time highs, or just massively break down. I think it doesn't really make much sense. It's just gonna be, people are not gonna be sure what to do, and yeah, that's basically it. When people don't know what to do, they just sit tight and or don't even take a position, and then it just goes sideways. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. Pretty. I like the Bitcoin setup. Actually, like there's some actionable stuff there. Like a weekly breakout would open the way for like a pretty nice move from 43 to 51. If you compare that to ETH, very, very different. ETH looks still shit in my opinion. Not too excited about that one. Quick refresher: we had like an all-time high breakout, right? So broke above 4k, and then we kind of just fizzled out. And this is one of the bad kind of, like, this is one of the worst things that can happen after a breakout, right? You don't want to have all the momentum disappear into the breakout, because then everyone that bought into the breakout basically has to sell, and that's what happened in the following weeks. The moment we started losing 4k, and you could kind of see how Bitcoin was just trading really cleanly. This is less so, in my opinion. I mean, there's still a nice resistance test here at 3k, but in general, ETH's just been a weaker Bitcoin, basically. If you just compare the two, like, this is the weekly structure of ETH, right? Mostly one bearish retest and then just sideways. And then you compare it to Bitcoin, which is basically you had a bearish retest and you're all the way back to that bearish retest level, right? So this is much, much more constructive in comparison to ETH, right? So ETH should be at 3k if it was the exact same strength, or if it had this exact same strength that Bitcoin has. Isn't doing so. I'm not excited, right? It doesn't really make much sense to trade the weaker pair, and ETH definitely is the weaker pair. Where does it get more exciting again? I think it's basically at 2k support. If we start breaking down, that would have to mean that Bitcoin breaks down as well, which it's pretty hard to speculate on. If it does happen, I mean, 2k is a nice bid. Would I want to bet that it does happen? No, just based on the fact that Bitcoin's at monthly support, right? We talked about this every single week in the last few months. You don't want to be fading monthly support, so you don't want to be shorting, in my opinion. But if you want to be shorting anything, it's probably, like, for me, it makes more sense to short the weaker pair, which is ETH, right? So if you absolutely have to short ETH is probably better, but I wouldn't short either one. And yeah, the trade setup here on ETH is basically a breakout above 3K, so you can trade it up to 4. But yeah, like I said, it's a weaker pair. Doesn't really make much sense, other than if you have like high conviction that the altcoins are gonna come back. But I don't really have that, just based on the fact that when you have a bunch of fears in the market, and we have global fears on a large scale right now in pretty much every market, I don't really think too many people are gonna go for the too speculative stuff. They're gonna be happy sticking with the boomer coins, right? And Bitcoin's just a boomer coin, and it's been outperforming ever since fear has entered the market, right? So I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon, unless the macro situation clears up, and that I'm not willing to make a bet on, right? I have no edge in that, so I'm just gonna have to wait and see how that turns out. On the lower time frames on ETH, you can also see I showed you the bullish pattern, or like, I mean, it's a bullish leaning pattern anyway for Bitcoin, which was me drawing like something like this, and you have higher lows across the board, right? So Bitcoin just walked up. I can show you quickly again. You make a low, you make a higher low, it just walks up, right? There's like an ascending triangle for the pattern nerds. I don't really think you should be too into like the patterns, but this is a pretty clean one. So we'll make do with it. With ETH, it's a little bit different, right? You can see the weakness. You can see that where Bitcoin had like a pretty straight top, ETH is most definitely curving down. So this is a downtrend, right? Where Bitcoin has like equal highs all the way, ETH is trending down. So that's a bad sign for ETH, not necessarily for Bitcoin, obviously. And you also see that while we're holding this trend line somewhat, we're going to probably close above it today again. It's still poking below it, because, and that just kind of shows weakness, in my opinion. This is not, oh, this is deviation, super bullish. I think it's just weakness. And Bitcoin is barely able to drag it up. So not too excited about ETH. A little bit more excited about Bitcoin. It's a pretty nice move, to be honest. If you got into it, I don't really see a good reason to close. Like, if you want to have like one reason to close, you could argue this is all resistance here, but I think that's just being quite doomerish. I think there's a good chance that we're gonna break 46K and head a little bit higher, and I think 50K is always gonna reject us if we go there, but I mean, that's still a little bit to go. And if it starts falling back down again, and this is something I mentioned earlier with raising the stop losses, I don't like the stop loss. The original trade idea was a stop loss below 35. Yeah, down here. I think the new stop loss idea is basically just holding 37.8. So original stop loss down here. New stop loss, in my opinion. And I'm not in this trade, and I'm not a financial advisor. But just the trade idea that I lined out on Monday is basically would be with raised stop loss right now, for me anyway. I don't really think if we broke these kind of lows that we set, that we rallied from, that would be a bullish sign. And so far it's not looking likely to break that, but you want to be prepared, right? It's kind of funny because we get these spike ups, and then we full retrace them, and like people get euphoric on the spikes, and then they get depressed on the down moves, and that's just how ranges work, right? Stuff goes sideways, and it plays with your emotions, and it's really hard to trade. That's why I'm telling most people they just shouldn't, right? Just enjoy your time, do something else. But if you absolutely have to, I mean, there's still plays to be made, obviously. I mean, this was a pretty clean setup with a decent likelihood and a good risk reward that I mentioned, like I said, on Monday. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to make this too long, and I've already babbled a little bit. Let me know how you like this kind of style. I don't really do videos. It's not in my toolkit. It's the first time I've ever actually done one, I think. So yeah, let me know how you like it. I usually like the streams more. It just kind of feels weird talking with like an empty screen. But yeah, who knows? Maybe this is better for some. So definitely give me feedback, and I'll be back to streaming next week, like normal. Big shout out again to the sponsor, which is FTX, and thanks for watching, even though this is like not the usual kind of style of content I produce. So yeah, thanks for that. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.